Good evening, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. Kind of a late one tonight, so I'm using the light from my phone to try and do this video, so I'm sorry if I don't stare directly at the camera, but I wanted to come out and give you guys some information that I have just come across. And, a lot of you know that I work at a lumber yard. I do retail sales for a living, and I have been doing lumber videos just about every week for like 3 years, and it has been one hell of a wild ride when it comes to lumber. And it's not over yet. Now, we have lumber prices that have dropped dramatically from their all-time high. Just a few months ago, they were trading at $1,700 per thousand. Now it's under $500 per thousand. And a very interesting thing has started taking place. Inventory levels all across the nation, from the lumber mills to the distribution networks to the lumber yards, everybody is full of lumber. And it is quite expensive. I mean, at $1,700 per thousand, there was a panic buy taking place where nobody thought that they were going to be able to get their lumber. There was going to be a huge shortage carrying on into the rest of the summer, and everybody loaded up on very expensive lumber. Since then, builder sentiment has dropped dramatically, consumer sentiment has dropped dramatically, and that the inventory levels in most of these yards, distribution networks, and mills is now oversupplied, and they are having issues transferring this lumber through the industry, like trying to get people to buy it and get it to flow has not happened. And now we're going to have an issue with the mills and their production, especially when it comes to the British Columbia area. Now, last, month, I don't think it was even a month ago, we did a report on how Canfor has announced that they are going to curtail development. Now, they said it was due to wildfires and transportation, rail issues, stuff like that. They didn't say anything about the price. But I had a sneaking suspicion that there was going to be more mill curtailments coming into the future, and that pricing was going to be an issue. And until today, I could not confirm it. Now, I heard about it. I heard rumors about it. I was suspicious. But I could not find any kind of confirming information saying that mills were going to curtail development due to the pricing until today. Confax, and I will leave a link down in the description for you guys, has announced that they are going to start curtailing on the 23rd, which I believe is Monday, for 2 weeks. And their reasoning, prices are too low, that they are now underwater on production. And this is something that I knew was going to take place out of this British Columbia area. These are high-cost producers. And just because you have mills all over the nation who can make a lot of money with the lumber prices saying even at the $400 or $500 per level, the high-cost producers up in the British Columbia area cannot. And now I know a lot of people will say, well, no big deal, so those guys don't make any money. Let them go out of business. They produce a lot of lumber. They can't go out of business. The demand for lumber is too big, and it's going to be coming from that particular region because these guys produce an insane amount of lumber. Now, just because they pay a lot to produce lumber doesn't mean that they have to produce lumber. And that if the prices drop below that production cost, they will curtail development, and that is going to hold back a lot of inventory. Now, if we have a low inventory level like we did before, you're going to see the prices go back up. Now, I have a feeling that where we are in lumber future prices right now is probably about as low as they are going to get. If you hear about these mills curtailing development at 4 or even 500 per thousand, like if they can't operate under 500 per thousand, they're about ready to have even higher cost of production coming to them, because the government up in the British Columbia area, they do something called stumpage fees. And now it's different from what's going on here in the United States. Those guys, when they assess this stumpage fee, they look at the previous 6 months and what sales were like, what the futures were selling for, and then they project what the stumpage is going to be for the next 6 months. So you see the problem that's happening here is that the government up there looked at what $1,700 per thousand was doing for these lumber mills, and they set the stumpage fee according to that high price. But that stumpage fee doesn't kick in until October. If I got it right, I believe it's October. So right now, the prices on the futures have dropped dramatically. A lot of these mills are now operating under, the cost of production is now have them underwater, where they are no longer being a profitable mill. And here in a few months, what they have to pay as far as the logs, the cost of production is going to go up, which is going to put even more strain on these mills. And if the prices, as far as the futures, haven't risen by then, you're going to find even more curtailment taking place. Then we start spinning back into the same old cycle that we just went through. Now, that same story had taken place back in 2018. Lumber prices had ran up to $650 per thousand. The British Columbia area was in something called salvage mode. They had dropped those stumpage fees in order to allow the mills to buy more logs and mill them up because of the salvage mode. They had a beetle infestation that went through there, killed off all their trees, and instead of letting them rot and die, they harvest the trees, mill them up, and sold the lumber off. But once that salvage mode ended, the price of the trees went up and the production cost for these mills was too much. They started shutting down production. That's what happened back in 2000. Well, it started happening in the summer of 2019 and carried on all the way into the new year, all the way into 2020. This was taking place. That's when COVID kicked in. That's when all the lockdowns started happening, and then even more mill curtailments and shutdowns started happening at that point. So once that happened and the inventory levels depleted, that's when everybody got their stimulus checks and ran out and started buying up all the pressure-treated lumber to rebuild the decks and fences and, rebuild the office space, remodel the house, doing whatever. There was a huge demand for lumber right at that inventory level depletion had taken place. So that's what caused the big run up in lumber to begin with, is that all the mills had curtailed development prior to the lockdown. Once the lockdown kicked in, everybody started buying lumber. Nobody really saw all that taking place or happening at that time. I mean, I was reporting on it, but even I was just confused about why is there no pressure treated lumber? Why can't I get 4x4s? Later on, as things were starting to happen, you start figuring it out, what was going on. But at the time, it seemed very strange that you couldn't get any of this material. Well, now it makes a lot of sense, because we're going to come into the exact same situation again if we find that these mills are not operating at a profit at $500 per thousand, and then all of a sudden the stumpage fees goes up on them here in a couple of months. Then you're going to find out that they really can't operate at 5, 6, maybe even 700 per thousand. They may still not be able to be profitable, depending on how much those trees end up costing them. I mean, I really don't know what that number is for these mills, and I imagine it's different for every one of them. But that's a serious situation that's coming into the future. If you are a person who is looking to build a house or buy lumber, that's something you got to keep your eye on, because it is definitely a situation that is coming. Anyhow, I wanted to bring you guys that information on Canfor as far as their mill curtailments. I will leave a link down in the description. Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.